to such things that I'm sure you're already aware that the public hearing that was originally scheduled for today for the ESD project, the upzoning ostensibly regarding Penn Station, but actually having nothing to do with it, has been rescheduled. And Vicky or Luke, you might recall the date off the top of your head, but it's May 9th, I think, or something like that now. But in any event, that information is, I'm sure, on the website and will be forthcoming. But originally, we were going to hustle this agenda in order to be able to testify at that hearing, which is no longer happening. So
I think it's on May 12th.
May 12th. Thanks, Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
And for those concerned, I do believe that it is good news, at least so far, that that is being delayed, that hearing. Oh, thanks. Luke just dropped the link into the chat about that. All right, it looks like we are good on quorum, and so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Hello, everyone. My name is Clayton Smith. I'm chair of the Parks and Public Spaces Committee for Community Board 5. As you are well aware, no position of this committee is the official position of the board until such time as the board takes up any decision for the full board vote, which is a week from Thursday. And that information is at cb5.org. We encourage you to attend. So we're going to begin with the item from Bryant Park Corporation and Urban Space about a spring market. I am scanning the attendees and I do see Urban Space folks in attendance, and I'm not sure if we have Bryant Park people as panelists or perhaps as attendees. Oh, I see Izzy is in the, yes. So Luke, you might want to make Izzy a panelist, I think. Thanks very much. So, okay, a little context for this item. 2 years ago, it was May of 2019, that resolution is on cb5.org. There was an application at that time for a standard event permit for a maker's market to occur over the course of 3 weekends in May or maybe into June. We had a lot of back and forth and deliberation about that at the time. We were in support of it. We voted unanimously to approve that. At the time, it was a kind of one-off pop-up market that featured all New York area and tri-state region artisans and makers of various kinds. So they came to us a couple of weeks ago saying that they wanted to present their plans for a new spring market, new iteration of the market. And I was confused by that and looked in vain for an event permit. Having been submitted to the city, there was none. And it took an enormous amount of sleuthing and confusion and back and forth to finally figure out that Bryant Park Corporation issued the RFP for a spring market, and the license has been issued. So we have nothing to vote on tonight. And procedurally, that is something I haven't seen in my 12 years on the community board, a license being issued before we even knew anything was happening. So that's something that we definitely need to talk about procedurally, aside from the details or merits of the market itself. Of course, we're interested about the market. And of course, we are aware that Bryant Park Corporation is under unbelievable duress, maintaining this critical public space, and that they are doing what they can to address, the incredible challenge facing them and us. So I just want to be clear that there's no need to conflate those things. We support the Bryant Park Corporation. We support measures to raise revenue, and certainly in a way that is also of a public benefit. So let's be clear that we will have that conversation, but that is distinct from the procedure. And I want to understand, I'm not sure if we're going to hear first from Bryant Park Corporation or from Urban Space, But what I would love to just hear, I mean, as the chair of this committee, I cannot represent to my members right now the details of this RFP. I have no idea what was in it. I don't know the duration of it. I don't know how long it was considered. I don't know if this market is for just this spring. I don't know if it's for this spring and next spring. I don't know if it's for random dates at their discretion. I don't know if it's every day for the next calendar year. I know nothing. So you will learn as much as I will when we give the floor to either Urban Space or Bryant Park Corporation. Whoever's interested in speaking, please raise your hand. Someone has to speak on behalf of. Yes.
Hi, it's Carrie from Urban Space.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi there. I'll just go ahead and start and talk a little bit about the market, if that's okay.
No, actually, I'd love to begin by speaking about the process.
Okay, certainly. So Urban Space produced with Bryant Park the Winter Village, and it really was a challenging year, as everyone can imagine, but we were really thrilled to report that it was a very successful event. The vendors did really well. Most importantly, it was safe. It was safe for the customers and the park visitors. It was safe for the vendors and all the staff. And it was a really, really positive experience. We also found that the event made the whole neighborhood safer. You know, coming off of such a tumultuous year, there was social unrest, there was a little bit of perhaps unsavory activity in the park over the summer, but we found that having an activation such as Winter Village just really made the entire area much more safe. It was vibrant, it was active, it was truly an overwhelmingly positive experience. So we decided that we really wanted to extend that opportunity for our vendors and do a spring market utilizing the kiosks that we have in place right now for the holiday shop. So we approached Bryant Park. They felt that this was something that should go through the RFP process, which we went ahead and did, and we bid on, and we were awarded the contract to just do a market for this spring. Again, utilizing the existing kiosks that have already been built in the space. The market will open on April 15th and it will run from through June 20th.
So the duration of the RFP is simply for this spring season?
Yeah, it was a bit of an experiment, I would say. You know, after the success of the holiday markets, we typically don't do a market in the spring, and so we thought that this could be an opportunity to extend the opportunity for the vendors for just this year.
Okay, and oh, hello, Dan Biederman is on the call. It's good to see your face, sir.
You, Clay.
And I think Izzy's here too somewhere, although I don't see Izzy. But I actually,
yep, I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
We had trouble getting in, Clay. We for some reason you couldn't hear us.
Oh, okay. Well, here you are both. There I see you. Hooray. Okay, so I'd love to hear from Bryant Park right now, just on this point of why it is that this is not an event application if it's only meant for this spring anyway, and why it is that the RFP was issued by you and not by the Parks Department, and why it is that nobody told us.
Bryant Park Corporation, as you know, is not like the other 1,900 parks in the system. The Parks Department doesn't issue RFPs for us. We issue our own. It's privately funded. We've never had, they have the right to look at the RFPs, but we've always been the issuer. Clay, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go back and forth from the process to the substance so all the committee members could understand what we're facing. Last May, June, and July, the conditions in Midtown were so horrendous, and I can give you details about that, but those of you who are not wandering around here wouldn't know how bad it was, that we really felt we were going to lose Bryant Park. 34th Street was already lost. It was not a safe place to wander around. The hotel arrangements with former homeless shelters were part of the problem. So people were strolling around Bryant Park from nearby hotels, punching people. harassing visitors and the like. So I'm going to jump forward and say passive space this spring and summer may not work in Midtown. So the reason for this being something we decided quickly and discussed with Urban Space is that it was great fear on our part after 25, 30 years of running Bryant Park successfully, we wouldn't be able to do so this year. The hotels are still occupied by former shelter residents. Large numbers of them are troublesome. And that's the reason to experiment. We believe once, we probably won't do this again this spring with a spring market.
Thank you, Dan. And can you just explain the actual details of the RFP? I mean, what is the actual license that is, it's very strange to have this conversation publicly and very strange to have a public hearing where we're learning for the first time what it is that the licensee can do. So can you just
I can jump in here about that.
Yeah,
This is Izzy. Hi. So I can't share all the terms of our license agreement with Urban Space, but the RFP, really, we worked very closely with the Parks Department on this. They basically co-wrote it with us. So in essence, it's, a Parks Department RFP through us is how we view it. And this is how we've issued RFPs in the past every single time. It is a 1-year agreement that we have with Urban Space. This, as Carrie mentioned, this is very much an experiment. It's a product of these very intense and uncertain times. This is not meant to be a long-standing, long-term deal. This was Urban Space coming to us and us supporting the idea to continue a winter market into spring. In the past, it's been our understanding that we've issued RFPs, and once we choose an operator, we always are, the first course of action is to ensure that we ask that operator to come before you all and to present the project and discuss with you the proposed plans and answer questions and alter the plan as needed. And so, as soon as we chose the operator in this case, we made sure that Urban Space came to you first thing. So that was how we were approaching this. And we've been in sidestep with the Parks Department the whole way.
Okay, well, normally when the Parks Department issues an RFP, as you know, they are required by law to, or at least by the city charter, to let us know about it, which is what occurred. For example, over the course of, in just in recent times, we weighed in substantively on, excuse me, if everyone could please turn your microphones off if you are not speaking. We weighed in substantively on the RFP that had yet to go out for the new concessionaire at Lasker Rink, for example, with that enormous project coming to Central Park. We worked with the Madison Square Park Conservancy exhaustively in public and private meetings to get that RFP in fantastic shape before it went out in order to address some specific concerns that the public has long had about the topic that was relevant at that time. It's normal for us to know about RFPs and to be informed about them. I appreciate that Urban Space is presenting their plans to us tonight, but we're not normally in the business of just being here to hear what you're up to and thank you and say goodbye. We like to be consulted. That is the role of a community board. That is our mandate from the city charter. So I want to hear about the market, and I really appreciate how you spelled out, Dan, and Izzy, all of the things that you're trying to address. And again, I'm trying to make this a distinct point, but as precedent, it's troublesome, and I don't want to spend a lot of time deliberating about the merits of the market because we have no authority to take a vote on that tonight. So we're certainly interested in hearing about it, but I want everyone to understand that we have no formal role in this process. So on that point, are there any questions from members of the committee about what we've discussed so far? Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. I heard that this was just for the spring, but Izzy, you said that this arrangement or agreement lasts a year?
Yes, just to clarify, apologies for the confusion. The RFP was just for the RFP terms were for 1 year. By no means do we want this market up for 1 full year. That Carrie can talk about the dates specifically for this market, but as of now, they are April 15th to June 20th. That's it. So the market plans to be completely loaded out of the park by the last day in, I believe, the morning of the first day in July, and then we will continue on with our normal regularly scheduled programming for summer until winter comes upon us again.
And just so we understand, but having a year term of an RFP, even though you're only doing it to July, what does that mean? That means that at any point you could do it again, or
we have no intention of doing so. We did that because to give the potential operators flexibility to propose dates within that year term.
I see. So accepting the proposal from Urban Space in response to the RFP is in fact the answer is this spring season.
Correct.
So within the terms of that RFP, it doesn't mean that, for example, you could have it again next spring if it's prior to the 1 year calendar date of the original RFP.
We do not plan to have it next spring as of now, since this is very much an experiment. This was very much just an idea to extend the winter market for this year because of the safety issues we're having in COVID.
But does the original RFP give you the capacity at your discretion to have the event again after this spring within the year term of the RFP?
I can go in and look at that exact wording. I don't know it off the top of my head. I think it's probably in the terms and conditions that I do not know by heart, but I'm happy to go look at that and get back to you.
If you could please email that information to the board office, we would be very interested in understanding what exactly it is going on. Todd.
Hi there. So Mr. Biederman mentioned that, and I can infer from some of the other comments, that a major reason given for this working outside of the regular procedures is that the presence of homeless people in the hotels bordering the district owing to the pandemic and the decimation of the hospitality industry. So what exactly is the reasoning that the presence of all of these homeless people, their presence circulating in the park and attacking people, or just making the park dangerous, is somehow going to be mitigated by the presence of this concession? I mean, could you elaborate on that a little bit more? Do I have it wrong?
Absolutely, and let me tell you the story. This in the early summer and the fall, before the winter market and rink went in, we were challenged in the following ways. The concessions were having trouble operating because people, we believed from the hotels, certainly one of the hotels on 44th Street, we had a guy who was coming in every day and threatening people, and there were others. A woman got slugged by a person we believed to have been a hotel resident. And as soon as the market went in, these problems disappeared, and it wasn't the weather.
We also had several break-ins.
And yeah, Irene Villanos is here, who runs the Winter Village. She reminded me that there were several break-ins and kiosks during that period, which we hadn't had before. The whole philosophy, Todd, going back to the very beginning of Bryant Park being run privately, and that's the reason we're very much different from some of the other parks that Clayton mentioned, is that running a large number of activities, whether commercial or non-commercial, as you know, almost everything in the park is free to the public, draws enough people that conditions are more attractive and safe. COVID created a situation where we couldn't draw people because there was nobody around to draw. So until the Winter Village went in, we were really in very bad shape. Crime was going up, and the people who run Bryant Park were saying to each other, how in the world, Bryant Park's always been viewed as a nice, benign place, and it isn't anymore, and we represent that it is. So we're endangering people by having them here while these guys, and we knew a lot of the people doing it, were circulating. So we are very concerned about passive space in Midtown Manhattan, even Bryant Park. This spring and summer, given Midtown is not nearly back to the level of activity that it was before COVID.
Daniel.
Thank you. So I'm just about the procedure again. I'm still, forgive me if I missed something, but a little unclear as to why we were not alerted. I know that it was like busy, but nonetheless, I guess you didn't think y'all needed to, or forgot to, or there was miscommunication. I don't understand. So
I can jump in on that. By no means did we not want to come to you or do this intentionally. We can, I need to dig into the timeline a little bit on my own after this, and we can obviously get back to you on the side. But our understanding is that we work with parks for these RFPs or concessions. We have close contacts at the concessions department at the Parks Department who helped us develop this RFP and the license agreement, as I mentioned earlier. And our contact at the Parks Department in that department usually notifies the community board of that RFP once it's done. This, I think, potentially was an exception or didn't go through the right channel. By no means was that intentional on our part. And this is very educational for the future on our end. But I can assure you that we felt that we were following the same protocols we always have with the RFPs that we've issued in the past. So by no means was this intentional. I'll say that again. And we were trying to operate within this framework as well as we can. So we're happy to be here today to answer all of your questions and talk through the market. Carrie, I'm sure, has a great presentation for you to discuss how she plans to operate this market safely and bring safety and some excitement back to Midtown, as Dan mentioned we need.
okay, thank you. I can really tell. Maybe I should clarify that I am in no way trying to blame anybody or ascribe intention to anybody. So please don't worry. I guess I'm mostly just asking so that hopefully it won't happen again, which I'm already hearing you talk about. So thank you.
Clayton, can I ask a question? I can't raise my hand.
Yes, Craig.
I'm a co-host, so I can't do the raise hand feature. So you sort of answered, this question is for either Dan or Izzy. You sort of answered this question, but I'm still a little bit confused because I hear on one hand, you said the constant, this is only going to be for this year. We don't think it would be for next year, but I also keep hearing the word experiment. This is an experiment. And when I hear this is an experiment, I usually think if it's a successful experiment, it's replicated. So if you could just reconcile the two. I'm just trying to understand because I'm hearing two different things.
That's a fair comment, Craig. So I think it's an experiment in how to manage the park in the spring of 2021 that's different from what we've done before. We've had the market you approved, which was only a 3-week effort closer to the Fountain Terrace. I have a feeling the spring of 22 will be fine. So we won't need to do this. So if I had the choice, I would not put the market in as a deterrent for bad activity in the park this spring, but I don't think we have that alternative.
So the experiment is more of how do we sort of make the park safe over the next few months, not the experiment for the next year, 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's why I said
okay. I'm not understanding. Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. That answers my question.
Thanks, Craig. I think that is it for questions right now. And I'll just conclude that by thanking everybody for understanding our concern and our desire for detail about process. And over the years, we've had a fantastic relationship with you guys. And that has largely been because you have been so responsive and proactive about coming to us in advance of even an event permit being submitted. Anytime there's something that's one of the 6-figure, income generating events or whatever, we usually have a heads up so that we understand what's going on and what's on the horizon and what your hopes are for it, even before the event permit technically has been submitted. And I understand that it sounds like you assumed that parks would have told us something, but there's a little bit of a disconnect between the ways in which Bryant Park Corporation is distinct from every other park, but at the same time, expecting that the Parks Department is the responsible party for informing us of something like an RFP that they're not even issuing. So I'm sure you can understand that we see that disconnect and are frustrated by that, and want to make sure that that is not how things continue moving forward. And with that, I think that we would love to hear about the market.
Great. I will go ahead and pull up my presentation. All right, so as mentioned, this market, really the idea came about after Winter Village and what a huge success it was for the vendors, for the customers, and we wanted to extend this opportunity through the spring. So we will be utilizing the existing kiosk to host a retail pop-up market. This market will feature local New York artisans, crafters, small businesses, mom and pop shops, and it will happen in the beautiful Bryant Park. And after, we will be, of course, utilizing our tried and true safety measures, which allowed us to manage a very, very safe winter market this year. Just a bit of vendor feedback that we wanted to share with everyone. One vendor said, facing unprecedented economic and health crises, I applaud Urban Space for handling this market so well. Thank you sincerely for working so hard to help us all find success this year. Another vendor said, we were just happy to be there. Customers who came back every year were thrilled to see us. It felt good emotionally, and we felt very safe. And a third vendor said, the customers were supportive and generous. We were extremely happy to come out to shop local and also to carry on their Bryant Park traditions. So many people make it a yearly destination, and we were really happy to be a part of their positive 2020 market experience. We know that we're fortunate. We know that we're lucky out of so many makers to even be able to afford this market at all. It was an absolutely positive experience. We also had a special visitor from Mayor de Blasio, Commissioner Silver, and Senator Hoylman. They kicked off the market. They came to welcome everyone, and they had a very important message for New Yorkers to get out and shop local. I have the market map right here. We will be utilizing the existing kiosks. As I've said, they will be spaced throughout the market in small clusters to allow for easy movement throughout the park. There is plenty of room around the kiosks for any potential queuing, and the area will be monitored by Urban Space to ensure that there is no risk of overcrowding. Additionally, there are open paths throughout the park for any visitor who wishes to visit Bryant Park and just bypass the shops altogether if they want to. We have some very strict COVID safety operational requirements. The vendors are really going to modify their kiosk and their style of service to ensure that both they and the customers are protected. Many vendors are doing counter style service. Many are using plexiglass to separate themselves from the customers. We have very clear signage that states that masks will be required for all shoppers. Staff, of course, also required to wear masks as well. Urban Space conducts regular unannounced inspections to make sure that our vendors are compliant at all times. And should there be any non-compliance, Urban Space will follow up and issue warnings and ensure that the behavior is corrected immediately. The selection of vendors that we have are all small businesses. They're local artisans, crafters. We'll have some long-standing mom and pop shops. We'll also have some budding New York entrepreneurs. This will be a largely retail market featuring jewelry, art, clothing, dolls, provisions, bath and beauty items, home items, and a few snacks and sweet treats. And that's an overview.
Thank you. So no, food prep is not happening.
There will be a very limited amount of prepared food vendors. Mostly it will be ice cream or lemonade or prepackaged sandwiches, things of that nature.
Great. So questions for members of the committee about the details of the market? And while we're waiting to see what questions we might have, just on the point of the, I mean, enforcement feels a strange word to use about COVID protocol compliance, but I guess it is the right word. What experience did you have at Winter Village as far as actual problems of people inadvertently or not kind of not being in compliance with public safety measures?
I'm very happy to report that for the most part, every customer was compliant and they had no problem following the rules, which is to say wearing a mask at all times while shopping, maintaining distance. I spoke at length with each of our vendors about this, and they reported no issues really in terms of, asking their customers to please put on a mask, please wait if the booth, if someone's already in here. And I think they were really pleased to see that people were happy to wait in line to visit their shop. That was really meaningful.
Love New York.
Yeah.
Dave.
Yes, I was wondering if you had completed the application process for all the vendors yet.
We have, but I am happy to be connected with any vendors who may be interested in participating. We kind of keep those conversations going throughout the year, and we'd love to talk to someone who might be interested in now or in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Or if there are any comments you would like to make as well. Look at that. Well, it sounds like we are wrapping this up already. I will give a second to let anybody raise their hand if there's anything else you'd like to share, or Dan or Izzy, if you have anything else you'd like to share.
Well, thank you for, as always, the way you run these meetings, and your compliment about how in the past we've pleased you that we're always in communication. Sometimes it's a little sloppier. COVID was the cause of more of that on things not involving Board 5, but we survived. You probably noticed that the market and the rink were at nowhere near their previous levels. That allowed us to comply with COVID protocols. Financially, it was a huge hit. The closing of the restaurant and cafe and kiosks was also a problem. So this is very much a unusual year, and we're hoping in the spring, as the weather improves, the park will be safe, but it really wasn't a year ago, April. So we were very nervous, and that's the reason this was done quickly.
Thank you, Dan. All right, everyone. Seeing no more questions or comments, we can wrap this up. I really appreciate the presentation and Dan and Izzy, both of you being here to speak to our concerns. Our concerns notwithstanding, we are, of course, very appreciative of the extremely difficult task you have had, and cherish this spot so much and miss having meetings right over it. And we look forward to things getting better. So thank you all for being here.
You're welcome back when we reopen.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So we are moving on to our second and final agenda item, which is the post-parade events for this year. We also are graced with the presence of Stefan. I think you're still here. Thank you for your patience. Are you still here?
I'm here. Yeah.
You're here. Stefan, and please pronounce your last name for us.
Grabowskis.
Stefan Grabowskis from the SAPO CCM. So guys, this meeting is completely different, and I'm speaking to the post-parade event applicants now, as well as my fellow board members, completely different from years past for obvious reasons. So to sum up where we're at with this, a couple things. So first of all, these events obviously did not happen last year. Therefore, the applications from the applicants are identical to the applications that we already voted on a year ago. And our position, there's no reason for our position to have changed in a normal world vis-a-vis the details of those events and those applications. At that time, we voted to approve all of these applicants, which was very thrilling because, you know, we've had a lot of back and forth and missteps with certain events and details and stuff, but things really had gotten shored up and everybody was on the same page. And it was the first year in a while that nobody was kind of on, you know, probation or whatever we call it, as to being approved or denied. And we unanimously voted to approve all of these events. Therefore, we had no need this year for our typical joint meeting with transportation with all the bells and whistles of examining all of the everything, because we've already weighed in on it. So that position, if this were a normal world and we were all reopened, we could take a vote right now on those same applications because it's the same stance we already have on the record. So the reason we're having this meeting at all is because, and why we're so thrilled that Stefan is here too, is because nobody knows yet what this summer is going to look like as far as city regulations, as far as public health guidelines, guidance from the state. So we don't know what these events are going to look like. So what I am kind of proposing that we do is make a kind of conditional reapproval of our past position so that these people have the public record that they need to go to the city saying the community board we support them. But we also have to have language in the resolution that makes it clear that we don't know yet what these events are actually going to look like. And so what I would love to have is a public conversation now with the applicants and with Stefan and with questions from everybody is, what is the timeline and what does it look like for what guidelines we might expect to see from the city and, more importantly, the state moving forward, and kind of what are the different scenarios for when these events will actually get the green light, if they do, under what conditions would that happen, and when might we expect that to happen? Would it be like, you know, a week before the event? Would it be, so I know that there's a lot of unknowns here, but I want to make sure that everybody had their questions answered about how this might unfold. So Stefan, we probably should just start with you.
Yeah, so just to lay out the couple scenarios that I envision, and again, I don't know, and I don't have a crystal ball and don't know where we're going to be when these events start. Right now, all city events, everything is under a state-imposed 200-person gathering limit. So that applies to any event that's happening currently, or if we were to bring back events that are currently prohibited under New York City EO, which is street fairs are currently not prohibited. Currently prohibited, sorry. So if we were to lift the executive order on street fairs, which I anticipate is going to happen in the near future, events are still held to the 200-person gathering limit that's set by the state, and that can increase or decrease depending on the state's guidance. So that is not within the city control to raise or lower. There could be a scenario where street fairs are allowed, But if gatherings could not be larger than 200 people, so that would need to factor into how we approve street fairs. There also could be guidance from the state specifically relating to these type of events, more specifically street fairs and festivals and pop-up markets, if you will, kind of different from the Bryant Park one. But that would lay out exactly how these markets would need, these events would need to function, perhaps allowing for more than 200 people, but dictating certain things about how much distance between tents, et cetera. We don't have that right now. So yeah, there's a scenario where street fairs come back. They're still capped at 200 until that number raises, and that could gradually raise over the course of the summer. So that we'll have to just work with that as that comes. There could be a scenario where street fairs come back, it's capped at 200. The city remains, the EO remains to have parades restricted as well. So there may be a street fair component, but no parade permitted. Obviously, I don't permit parades, but these events do go hand in hand with the parade. So that's something to consider as well. And there could be a scenario where street fairs are still prohibited through the spring and into the early summer. I don't have a timeline on that. I imagine we're going to know something in this week, probably on street fairs. But again, 200 people is a pretty small number for some of these events. So that's going to have to impact on how the applicants feel about hosting an event of that size, et cetera. Sorry if that wasn't any answers, but that's kind of the world we're in right now. But I think that those are kind of a couple different scenarios. You know, your guess is as good as mine in terms of where we're going to be, but there are a couple layers of restrictions. We are expecting the city restrictions to loosen potentially, but again, do not quote me on that.
Got it. Thank you so much. It's definitely confusing, but you've done a good job of helping us understand the various ways this could go, especially, and I think everyone is clear on this, but the applications that come before the city and come before us are for the post-parade events, which are akin to street fairs. The blocks closed next to the park and around the park. For the gathering after the parade, we have never weighed in on the parade itself, aside from some kind of inside baseball trying to like convince the NYPD to reverse the route and stuff like that. But we have never, you know, the NYPD does that. So the parade itself is a completely different set of rules that are going to come down the pike about numbers of people. So one question I expect some of our applicants might have, and we'll take a question now from Mr. Syed, is what happens if the parades aren't allowed, but the post-parade event is? How on earth would that work? So yes, sir, you have a question. Unmute yourself.
This is Syed from Pakistan Day Parade. I have heard that Columbus Day Parade is going on, and they're advertising actually currently from, I believe, on October 25th. And gentleman, Stefan should know it from, I believe he's from SEPA, that if the parade is going on, or is there a problem with it, or is they're gonna go for it because they start advertising already?
I mean, I can't speak for why they're advertising. One, I don't permit parades, just to be clear as well. The same way community board does, the community board doesn't weigh in on the parades. Parades are permitted by the NYPD, so I can't speak to that directly. And whether they're advertising or not really doesn't weigh in on the fact of whether they're going to be approved. So I think that those are exclusively different. Nothing to do. Yeah, we can talk offline about that if you want, but I that doesn't really mean that there's going to be a parade in October. I think maybe they're banking on October being a safer time to have a parade. I don't want to answer any questions about parades because I don't permit parades. I will tell, the one thing I will say is that the executive order that is currently limiting street fairs, multi-block events, also has a limitation on parades. Those are all independent items in the executive order and could potentially be struck from the executive order at different times. So that is just why I'm saying there's not going to be events, yes, events, no. It's specific items in the executive order that lay out different types of events that can and cannot happen. And those may all be struck at the same time or may all be done at different times. So that's just making that clear. I don't want to speak to the Columbus Day Parade though, because I don't know what you're referring to, and I don't permit those.
Got it. Thanks, Stefan.
I got it. One more question. I'm sorry. So in other words, we are just in line with applications. If things change, we are there. Otherwise, we have to wait maybe until next year.
Yeah, I would say that my suggestion to all the applicants, and this should apply to all of you, is that, I think you need to weigh your own organizational concerns about whether you want to proceed. But if you are allowed to proceed this year, we will let you know. And in that case, you should be ready to execute your event if you are willing to have it. You're in no way obligated to. One thing I'll also just say for the record, that is, we're going to have this issue with a lot of street fairs throughout the city. Those that are protected under the moratorium and actually have a street fair permit, a multi-block street fair permit. I know some of you have some different kinds of arrangements with us. If you choose not to have your event this year, we're going to do our best to make sure no one loses their status. We did that last year because known events happened last year. So we have some flexibility in the rules this year, hopefully, to make sure that if you voluntarily choose not to have your event, even if it is permitted, we will make sure you don't lose your status for next year.
Great, thank you.
That's great. That's very, very helpful to know. And I think we have representatives from every event here, right? If there's, Craig, if you could just clock, I just want to make sure if anyone is not in attendance, we certainly want to make sure they know that piece of information. But I think we have everybody.
Yeah, and I have everybody's name from the attendee list. I wrote down. I took a minute.
Okay, great. And there was no application this year from the Persian Day Parade. Stefan, as far as I know, we didn't see anything about that one.
I don't see it either in our system, but they may have felt that it was too early to have that. Are they in attendance?
No, they're not.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, if they didn't put it in, we'll sort it out for next year. But it was in April, right? So that's probably too soon for that to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Ms. Galeros. Oh, unmute yourself again.
Stefan had already answered my question regarding, because our event is June 6th, we may not have enough time if there would be clearer guidelines as to, we can proceed or not to proceed. So the question was really related to our standing permit on the areas and on the date that we want. So he already answered that question.
Got it.
For next year.
Yeah. We're not going to force anybody to have an event if you don't feel like you're capable of doing that, just so you maintain your status. So we will do our best to make sure that is sorted out for the rule change that we do every year, extending the moratorium. So I'm confident that's not going to be an issue.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Bansal.
I'm really impressed with your concern, and you seem like you've thought about everything. So I just want to be sure that my understanding is that if we choose not to do it, even if it's the time comes in, that it's not like we're going to lose our spot like it has happened. And also the fact that suppose we were to do a very small event within the time, within the parameters which are done by like having 200 people maximum and having a very small event, that should be okay.
What I can say about the not losing the status, again, the rule change that we do usually comes later in the year. What we did last year was in order to extend the moratorium, we skipped 2020 essentially. We said if you had your event in 2019, you can have it in 2021. So I imagine what the rule change, and again, don't quote me on this, but this is our goal, would be there's obviously a lot of legal stuff that goes with that, but I don't see a reason why it would not be possible. And we'll do our best to make sure that it does, where we'd probably say, if you did not have your event in 2019 or 2021, you can't have it in 2022. So it's very legal, the language, but that's probably what we would do. I don't see there's a good reason for that. Obviously, we don't want to force anyone to have an event. We're getting concerns from other applicants, not just this group here in the post-parade event. So I'm confident that will be fine. Regarding having a small event, I'm not saying right now that whenever your date is, you're going to be able to have a small event. But if you want to have a small event and it is permissible at the time, which I can't say right now, we'll work with you to make that happen as long as it meets whatever guidelines are in place at that time. And we can work with that, maybe issue you a different kind of permit. We'll figure it out. I know you're from the Indian Federation.
Right.
so you guys already don't have, I believe you already don't have the multi-block status anyway, but we have a special arrangement with you. So we'll just, you don't even have to worry about the moratorium anyway, because that was already, that status was lost, but we give you that, we give you those extra blocks. So I'm not too worried about you anyway. So we'll figure something out.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, that is something that's a little confusing. If there are no parades, but a 200 gathering post, you know, I don't know what you call it, street event is allowed, I do have an open question for the applicants, which you don't have to answer now, but it's something that we would be concerned about, is how on earth you would engineer such an event when some of your events draw tens of thousands of people, how on earth you would organize and control a 200 people. That part seems a little tricky. I hope that we're allowed to, well, I just hope everything goes well. Are there other questions from applicants at this point? And also, I do also want to open the floor. I know that there are Robin Lockwood and maybe some other people from the Madison Square Park Conservancy are attendees. If you have any particular questions, now would be the time as well. And if so, just raise your hand too. Nothing from any of the other applicants? Sounds like everybody is cool, calm, and collected. I see no hands. So members of the committee, any questions or comments from members of the committee? All right, well, we've got it all under control, people. It sounds like I mean, look, there's so much we don't know that it's kind of hard to actually have any further conversation than what we've already had. We will do our best from Community Board 5 standpoint to help facilitate any ongoing conversations. So applicants, if you have any confusion moving forward that we can help with, of course, just reach out. And we all look forward to seeing what happens. And I think that I would like to hear a motion to basically reapprove our past position with the caveat that everything is different and that we will closely monitor changes on the ground.
Motion to reapprove.
Second.
And, great, let's take that to a vote.
Okay, Clayton,
Yes.
Craig, yes. David,
Yes.
Miriam,
Mary, yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Will. I saw Will on here before. He's muted. Okay,
Oh, I see. He's calling in.
okay. Mike,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Noah.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And it's Will. I said yes. I'm sorry. I was
Thanks, Will.
struggling to get off of mute.
Okay.
No problem. All right. Thank you, everyone. A unanimous reapproval, and let's wish for the best for this spring, summer, and fall. It's great to see you all. Thanks for all your participation, and we'll see you at full board a week from Thursday.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you for having